Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats Podcast. It is, Thursday? Thursday, September 19th. Days are meshing together at this point, Chuck.
Yes.
This is episode 135. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody, subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is probably where you're finding this right now. So if you're already subscribed, that's great. News 4, Fox SA, and if you're so inclined, download the podcast version as well. Here are the soothing sounds of Chuck Miketinac and myself, Matt Roy. Chuck, how are you this week?
Doing great, Matthew. We're running through another week, and I can't believe we're already week 4 for TNL. Can you believe it?
Week 4 of TNL, week 4 of college football, week 3 of the NFL season. Seems like we were anticipating everything all week long, or all summer long, really, and now we're already in week 3. It's just hitting the groove, running.
This walk across time, I told you, is like walking across the street. That's what it feels like, man.
Chuck Miketinac, also the only person that you'll ever meet having a Philly cheesesteak or a lunch sandwich at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you, Zito's, for being open at 9 a.m.
I love Zito's, but I don't know if I wanted it, at
Trust
9
me,
o'clock.
even at 9 a.m., you want it.
Even at 9 a.m. All right, well.
It's noon somewhere.
I'm used to it's 5 o'clock somewhere. That's my favorite line. Anyway, we got a lot to get to today. We got Ravens at Cowboys, as the Cowboys try and rebound from a despicable loss on Sunday.
3:25 on Fox.
3:25 on Fox
Sunday.
And then at 9:30 on Fox.
Post-game reports, courtesy of Zach Hedrick.
Meantime, the Texans are traveling to Minnesota, take on the surprisingly 2-0 Vikings. So that game looks a little bit tougher than we originally had maybe thought when the schedule came out. What are the Texans going to need to do for a key win? Plus, was CJ Stroud little broing Caleb Williams on Sunday? The little bro memes really taking over the internet this week. Didn't really know that was a thing, but I guess it is. And then NBA training camps opening in the next couple of weeks, so we're going to talk a little bit of Spurs basketball today. Chuck, get back into the flow of things. Wemby, top of mind already for me.
Okay. I'm here for you, Matt.
And then, should probably be recording over here. And then NBA training camps obviously getting underway. There was also this weird Forbes article that was written that says that the Spurs are building a rebuilding clinic. So we'll talk about the rebuild a little bit, plus interesting comments from a former NBA player about the health of 7-footers. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. But I have trivia for you, as always. I like this trivia question a lot because it was a trivia question that even surprised me. So the Spurs have not made the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons, the longest drought in franchise history. What is the second longest drought in Spurs franchise history? Do you know off the top of your head, or do you want to wait a little bit?
I don't, but I think I do, maybe.
Let's revisit when we get to the Spurs.
Okay.
Give everyone
a
second to think about this. If you're watching, obviously we're not streaming today, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can think about this for the next couple of minutes before we get to the Spurs. So, question one more time: the Spurs have not made the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons right now, the longest drought in franchise history. What's the second longest drought? It's not very long. I'll give you that hint. So let's talk Ravens Cowboys. So Ravens are 1-point favorites at the Cowboys, which is a little bit surprising to me. I thought that the Cowboys would be maybe 2 points favorites coming into this game just because they had won 16 straight regular season games coming into last week, and then you have one loss, and then you have the Green Bay loss at home last year. So even if you count those two, 16-2 in your last 18 home games in Dallas, and the Ravens are going to come in 0-2 as 1-point favorites. That line in general just kind of took me by surprise.
I think a little bit, yes, but I think the other side of it is at some point the Ravens are going to turn this thing around, right? And I know Cowboy fans are hoping it's not this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know if it's not going to be this weekend.
I don't either.
That's the
why
thing.
We watch.
1 point. It's basically a pick-em. Like, who do you think's going to win? And I really don't know who's going to win this game because both teams have a lot of issues. The Cowboys, obviously, their biggest issue is they can't stop the run. They allow 4.9 yards per carry, which is 24th in the NFL. They have allowed 5 rushing touchdowns this season already through 2 games, which is the worst in the NFL. They have 20 rushing first downs allowed, which is 28th in the NFL. And when you're playing a team, with the reigning MVP Lamar Jackson And with the 6'3", 250-pound behemoth of a running back, Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in NFL history, that doesn't bode well for your chances in this game.
I'm with you. Plus, Mozzie's back isn't 100%. They already made one roster move this week to bring in another defensive lineman. I'm with you. I don't know that the week is setting up necessarily in the Cowboys' favor when you're talking about a week where they got gashed on the outside. Now, this week it could be inside. So we'll see what gives. But, again, they're going to tell you where they think they're at. And when they're making roster moves like this, not midweek, but pretty damn close to it.
Yeah.
I don't think they are where they want to be along the defensive line.
If I was the Ravens, and the Ravens have been criticized recently for passing the ball too much, being a little bit too pass happy with Todd Monken, and I get it. They have a lot of weapons. They have Likely and Andrews and Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry and Kerry. What's the other guy's name? Kenyon Martin or whatever his name is, the other running back. But they have a lot of weapons. And
I wish I could help you out there, by the way.
It's all good. I'm surprised I don't know it, honestly. They have a lot of weapons on the outside, and Todd Monken has seemed to be a little bit too pass happy, and they've been criticized for not running the ball more. Obviously, last year in the playoffs against the Chiefs, they just stopped running the ball in the second half, and they gave up that lead last week to the Raiders, another 10-point lead that they've blown at home because they stopped running the ball. If I was them, I'd run the ball 50 times this game. Whether it's read option with Derrick Henry or the backup running back, whether you're putting Lamar out on the edge and doing boots, whether you're just running out of the I formation or strong formation with Derrick Henry, you have to run the ball up the Cowboys' ass. And that's how Green Bay won. That's how the Saints won. And if they don't do that, they have a chance to lose this game.
I'm with you. It's, part of this, though, is, and I know nobody wants to talk about this, these coaches and these organizations have to manage the season in terms of reps and how much you're using guys because the season's so long. And every time a guy touches the ball or is even out on the field for that matter, obviously your chances of getting hurt are great. And Derrick Henry is going to be no good to the Ravens, just like Zeke's not going to be any good to the Cowboys if you're going to give him the ball 30 times a game, the first 3 games, and again, exponentially, your chances for getting injured go up greatly the more you touch the ball, right? So I hate that this is what it's devolved to in a lot of ways because we don't get to see these great players. Some of them are capable of taking over games. The fact of the matter is, especially early on in the year, you have to manage reps and you have to do it through the course of the year. And McCarthy's really done a masterful job of doing that during his last 2 years with the Cowboys, and he did a really good job with that for the most part in Green Bay too. You just don't know ultimately how does that affect your continuity when you get to the playoffs if guys aren't used to carrying the load week to week and then all of a sudden in the playoffs you want to go a little differently, ride your horses that got you there, but obviously get the ball to your best players. I don't know. It's a fascinating dynamic. I don't know what the answer is. Because, as we see on the high school level, right? There's guys going down every week. And we see how seasons get changed instantly.
Right.
Because somebody gets hurt early on in the year.
And they have a lot of injuries right now. Trayvon was a DNP on Wednesday. CD, DNP on Wednesday. Mozzie, DNP on Wednesday. Jordan Phillips just got him put on IR, which is why they made that pickup from the Commanders practice squad. They're already a little bit of a mash unit when it comes to that defensive line. And when you're playing a team like the Ravens, that's the least.
Agree.
That's the worst unit to have injuries on. Mozzie, if his back flares up, he's already a little short with the lead in his ass. And not short stature-wise, but a little bit light on the poundage, which is weird because we talked about his weight all off season. And you don't have the blockers, or you don't have the guys up front to eat up that space. You don't have the one tech that can eat up the space and eat up the A gap on either side, or you don't have the 3 tech that can eat up the B gap. And you really have to play a technically perfect game if you're the defensive line and you're the front 7 basically for the Cowboys if you want to stop this team. And right now they're not gap sound. They're not
Agree with the gap sound.
They're not
stuff.
doing exactly what they're supposed to do. 2 guys are getting into an A gap, and then you see someone running right through the B gap, which is where a guy is supposed to be. So.
Now, Jerry would disagree with you. On his radio show this week,
course he does.
105.3 The Fan, he said they got bigger in the middle of their defensive line this offseason. And I think we know what he meant by that. He's putting the bigger guys in there now, and other guys were allowed to walk.
But if you put a big guy in the same gap as another guy, then you're still going to have issues. And the fact that we're 3 weeks in and they're not gap sound is a little bit of a problem and kind of an indictment on Mike Zimmer. If you can't stop the run, you're not going to win this game. And I don't know if they can stop the run at this point.
That's fair, although they look pretty damn good week one. So let's see if it's a week-to-week thing or this is literally, I hate to say this too, because of the lack of preseason and the fact that nobody plays for injury issues. The first month of the season is essentially the preseason. You just hope you can at least go 2-2 and not bury yourself. And then if you get lucky and you get off to a hot start like the Cowboys did last year, then great, you've got some early season equity, and you're not chasing necessarily as much as you would probably have to if you got off to a slow start.
I will say this: if they lose this game, it's not the end of the world. You're playing an AFC opponent. You are playing at home. You want to win all your home games, but you're playing an AFC opponent, and when that comes down to tie breaks and all that stuff, that's not going to affect you later on in the season. So even if you do go 1-2 in your first 3 games, obviously it's going to be sky is falling on Monday.
Of course, it was already falling this
Exactly.
week.
It was falling this week when you lost to the Saints, but I would say that even if you get blown out by the Ravens, it's not the worst loss possible. Losing to the Saints, much more meaningful than losing to the Ravens, despite us thinking that the Saints are a lesser team than the Ravens. You know what I mean? Like, this is a good measuring stick against a non-conference opponent, but if you lose, it's not the end of the world. And on Monday, when and if they lose, we will not say it is the end of the world.
These guys are used to it, right? It's a week-to-week league. If you win, you get a reprieve for a week from the hate and the discourse and everything that's negative. And if you lose, well, you get another week of it. But I think, again, if any organization is battle-tested towards those kinds of things, it's this one. On to the next.
We're having some tech issues. It's weird not having my headphones on. It's like I'm used to hearing stuff in my ears, and right now I'm just talking to you like we usually talk in the sports department, and it's a little odd for me not to hear everything right in my headphones like this.
I usually have mine on, but I can't ever hear Bob. Bob's not here, so it makes no sense that I even have him around my neck, but...
Hey, I like it. It's a good look.
It's like
you're back in the
worker.
80s.
That's right, wearing his helmet to work today.
Give me a winner.
Ravens by a field goal.
I'll say Ravens by 10.
Okay.
I'm dumb. I actually wrote down Cowboys by 10. But I just think that the Cowboys will stop them enough. And I think that they're so good at home. I'm basically relying on their home record. Like, is it going to revert back to the mean where you kind of average everything out, or are you going to keep going on this torrid pace at home? And if you're 16-2 in the last 18 games at home, including the playoffs, I'll take that risk. Let's go Texans-Vikings. So Texans traveling to Minnesota, take on the Vikings. That's Sunday, 12 o'clock in not in Reliant Stadiums. It's up in Minnesota. So actually, Luis, can you take that super down? It's actually incorrect. That was my bad. The Texans coming into the game against the Vikings as 2.5-point favorites on the road, which is a little surprising. And the number stinks. The number on that game stinks to high heaven. 2.5-point favorites for one of the best teams in the AFC over a surprisingly good team.
So we call it trap game.
Yes, it's a trap game. It's a trap line.
Whenever you see the half or 6.5, to me is always the one that. Those are the games you stay away from.
Yeah, I don't even think I am a sports bettor, and I am not going to touch this game with a 10-foot pole because I have no idea what's going to happen. I would not be surprised if the Vikings win this game.
I would.
I don't think I would be surprised. I will definitely not be surprised if they cover the number. You know how in the week 1 the Texans were 2.5-point favorites against the Colts at home. Obviously, that's a divisional game, and the game ended up 29-27. I could see something like that happening where they win by 2 points and then right on the number here. But Joe Mixon and Damian Pierce are big, big losses if they don't play this game. They need that run. The Texans need the running game to win. Especially
because I think, don't the Vikings have like 10 sacks already this year?
They're really good.
10 or 11. And I know the Texans are at like 9 or 10 too. So it'll be a defensive game, you would assume. But, I mean, I guess the crazy thing for me is, I know it's a small sample size, but Sam Darnold's the number 3 quarterback in football right now. CJ Stroud's number 7. No slouch.
How good is Kyle Shanahan to bring back Sam Darnold from the depths of despair and make him into a solid cornerback? Also, O'Connell what a great coach Kevin O'Connell is. Like, to do what he did with Kirk, to do what he's doing or what he did with Josh Dobbs when Kirk went down, and Nick Mullins, and to have that team representative last year after losing your starting quarterback, and now to come in with Sam Darnold after your rookie quarterback, who you might not have started anyway, your rookie quarterback who has all the hype in the world, coming in, tears his meniscus, and he's out for the season, and if Sam Darnold is anointed the starter, and he's been playing lights out for the first 2 weeks.
I'm always impressed with their talent level. Like, they find guys, they're really good at identifying who the good college players are. Their talent, it's like you look at them on paper and you're quick to dismiss them, or you want to dismiss them. But every year, it's like, here we go again. I mean, you think that this is going to be the year that you're finally going to get a reprieve against the Vikings, and not going to be the case, man. You're going to be in a street fight, and Danielle Hunter, as good as he was for the Vikings, they just seem to be able to replace these guys, and now Danielle's going to get a chance to maybe go up and stick it to his old squad.
Yeah, Danielle Hunter revenge game.
Yeah, should be fun.
It's going to be a fun game. To me, this kind of comes down to the trenches, as most games do. Can the Texans push some guys off the ball and run the rock with somebody who is not named Joe Mixon or Dameon Pierce? We'll see. And can Sam Darnold continue this torrid pace? I mean, they have some injuries on the Vikings front as well. Justin Jefferson popped up on the injury report. Jordan Addison popped up on the injury report. Christian Darrisaw popped up on the injury report. Sam Darnold needs all those guys to win. Aaron Jones has been really good for them, except for that fumble he had last week. I know you're upset that he's not on your
every
Packers
time I
anymore.
see that guy's name, it's like, and there's no way, and any Packer fan, you ask him, there's no way they will ever pull against that guy.
No, 100%.
That's saying a lot, even if he's playing for the purple team.
I did want to talk a little bit about the CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams controversy that's going on right now. The little broing of sorts. I didn't even know what that meant until this week. I'm just going to read from a Fox story real quick because I didn't want to try and paraphrase this. CJ Stroud getting criticized for post-game interaction. He went out there, said, "Good job there, or good job out there, bro. Hey, stop taking those hits." This is after the Sunday night football game against the Bears, which the Bears covered by 0.5 point. Curse you. Williams appeared to walk away, but Stroud pulled him back into the conversation. "Come here, learn from those mistakes. Everything that you got, bro, is in you already. You're going to be a hell of a player in this league." So then that was the end of that story, and Stroud was criticized heavily after the game for this interaction because he was mic'd up. People saying that it's not the time or the place for that. People saying, like, you're only a second-year player. You don't have this veteran status. Why are you...
They are the same age.
Why are you... Yeah, they're the same age. Why are you little broing this guy and trying to act like the older brother? Shut up. Like... This is what happens every game. Every game, someone walks out, they're like, good job, blah, 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 and then they walk away. Like, why is this an issue?
Yeah, I'm with you because I don't necessarily see CJ Stroud as a guy that's conniving or trying to big league or big bro anybody necessarily. However, I do get the other side of it too. It's like, if you're Caleb Williams, you just lost a tough game. You just got sacked 1,000 times in this game. You took a pounding and a beating. Do you really want to hear from the other team's quarterback while you're walking off their field with cameras around and microphones? I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily want to hear any of that either, even though I think CJ Stroud's intentions were probably pure and not
100%.
meant to, demean or, get one over on the opposing team's quarterback. I get it from both sides, but again, I know if I was Caleb Williams, I'd be like, dude, just let me get to the locker room. Really, I don't want to hear from you. We just competed against your team. Maybe on a phone call during the offseason, I want to get this. However, like I said, I don't think for 2 seconds that CJ Stroud was doing anything but spreading the love around.
I get that, and it seemed like Caleb did not want to be part of that conversation either.
Right.
Like his body language told you, like, get away from me.
Right.
Like,
I don't mind admitting in a situation like that, I would be a poor loser. It's like somebody's trying to be a gracious winner. I don't want to hear from you.
Caleb also didn't play well that game at all.
Yeah, but
threw
not necessarily his
picks.
fault.
I mean, threw a couple of ugly picks. They pressured him on 36 out of 42 dropbacks. No one's going to play well when you play like that. Some of the pressures were his fault. Let's just call a spade a spade. He ran. He's trying
playing
to
in game 2.
He's trying to do college things, and you stop slurping your drink in the
I can't help
in
it.
the
I was
microphone.
parched and I had no water left, so I had to take the
You never have any water
the remnants
left.
at the bottom of the ice cube cup there.
Yeah, he does come up with
I
that.
do, but I'm hoping that it melts, although the styrofoam is not being real flexible in that regard.
Anyway,
Sorry.
it's just funny. It happens every time. You're right. His intentions are pure, and CJ came out this week and was like, I wasn't trying to little bro him or upstage him or anything like that. It just, when I lost last year, players did that to me, and it really helped me, and I cherish those moments. And so I try to do the same thing for Caleb, and then this all happened. So
Cool.
I get it. It's just, I hate that this is even like a controversy that we're needing to talk about. Like, it's just players being players. It's guys that are going in, they're shaking hands after the game saying, good job, F you, you win, I hate you, whatever. And then they're going to go their separate ways,
Right.
you know? It is what it is. So who wins the Vikings-Texans game before we get to the Spurs?
I say the Texans. I think the Texans got to come out and throw the ball. I mean, you've got the most deep receiving core in the league. You're a little thin at running back this week. Hey, get out and just chuck it around the ball yard and let's see what happens. And I think somebody needs to press the Vikings because their defense has been really, really solid. And I know that sounds antithetical to what they've already put on tape with all the sacks and everything, but let's find out what's going on.
Antithetical, way too big of a word for me. I can't. Can you say it? Can you spell that for me?
I'm trying to think of another word that actually fits.
I'm going to go Vikings. I think the Vikings.
Thank you, Mom, for planting that seed when I was a little kid.
I'm going to go Vikings. I think the Vikings win this game. And like I said, that's a smelly old line that they got there. I'm under the impression Vegas knows something that we don't with that line. So I'm going to go Vegas. Or I'm going to go with Vegas and choose Minnesota.
Okay.
So let's get to the Spurs trivia question before we get to some more Spurs stuff. So the Spurs have not made the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons, the longest drought in franchise history. What is the second longest drought, Chuck?
1?
1's what you're going with?
Yeah. Did I win?
1 is correct.
Okay, cool. My
They
memory's
actually
not as
tied
shot.
1 4 times.
Wow, I would have gotten that part wrong.
So they have not made the playoffs, not including the Dallas Chaparral's time.
Okay.
Not including that, they have not made the playoffs 4 times in franchise history. 83-84, which they went 37-45. 86 to 87, they went 28-54. Then obviously David and Tim's years when they bottomed out, they got the first pick and they got the 2 best players. I thought it was fascinating. I did not realize this, that they have not made the playoffs more in the last 5 years than previously in franchise history. I did not realize that.
I did not know that either, but it sure feels like that. I know we've talked about this before, how spoiled we were, but I think that's why some of us have a problem when you start getting this, hey, they're this, they're great, they're this. It's like, no, we know what that looks like. And so it's a harder leap for people like me that are old.
Yeah, when I'm looking for trivia questions, I try and grab something that like even surprises me when I'm looking for it, and that surprised me. I thought that the Spurs had a couple of down years in the 70s and 80s, and maybe they had like a 2 to 3 year streak there where they didn't make the playoffs, but 1 year at a time basically. Even though in between the 86, 87 and then 88, 89, they made the playoffs at 31.
I know those
they
80s
made the playoffs
teams
at 31 and 51.
Like if it wasn't for the Lakers Showtime era, I mean that's more championships.
Yeah, 100%. But I just thought that was really surprising. I thought that was really surprising, and so now you have a 5-year rebuild, for lack of a better term, for the Spurs going into year 6 of this, and they're trying to break the longest drought in franchise history, and the question is, can they do it? I found an article by Forbes this week from NBA contributor Brian Toporek, and sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Brian. He says the Spurs are putting on a rebuilding clinic. He goes into the draft capital that they have right now, 17 first-round picks, more or less, or pick swaps in the next 7 years. The drafting of Victor Wembanyama, the trading of certain assets like Jakob Poeltl and DeJounte Murray and what you got back for those guys, the making of trades that don't fit your timeline. The question that we all want to know is, what is the timeline? But his hypothesis, his assertion is that they're putting on the rebuilding clinic because they're doing it the slow way. They have a goal in mind, and they have a focus on when they want this team to compete.
I don't know that that's not anything that we haven't said around here. I don't know that I would give them 100% credit for like being the first to do this, though. I mean, all you could do is look up 35 and see Oklahoma City, and they kind of did this that way too. And obviously, Oklahoma City wasn't the first one either. That's ever kind of just knocked everything over and said we're going to start from scratch. But it is a masterclass in that. It's like they're playing 5D chess, right? There's a million different ways this thing could go, and there's going to be reactions and actions and reactions. And I think the fact that they've got all this draft capital is, again, you don't know what that's going to look like 2 or 3 years from now, but you have to like the fact that there's really nobody seriously overpaid that's also cutting you off from going out and getting somebody really, really good and bringing them in to join the program when you're ready to make that leap. To answer your question, I'm not sure when they're ready to compete. I would hope it's this year. Hell, I hoped it was last year.
Yeah. My only issue with it is we don't really know if it's a masterclass in rebuilding or a clinic in rebuilding yet because we don't know what the end result is. We can call it and say that this is going to be the model if they end up making the playoffs and end up as finals contenders for years and years and years to come. But right now, it just looks like they're doing their best to build assets, gain assets while trying to rebuild this team. And we just don't know what the end result is going to be. So I have a problem saying that they're putting on a rebuilding clinic. Like, yes, they're putting on a clinic of acquiring assets and building a foundation.
And giving themselves options.
But is this the model? Is this how you want to rebuild a franchise? We don't know that yet because we don't know the end result of this process. So that would be
okay. I'm with you. I'm picking up what you're putting down. That's good.
It is smart, suffice to say that it is smart moves what they're doing. I mean, even the trade for Harrison Ingram, where you're helping, or Harrison Barnes, where you're helping facilitate a bigger move, and you're gaining a pick swap, and you're gaining a player that does not hamper you financially in the future. So you can maybe succeed a little bit more now, but also gives you more flexibility in 2031 with that Kings pick swap by trading the 8th pick for a 2031 pick from Minnesota, who now has no draft assets and can't build for the future with their draft capital. They're thinking that they have their team for the success right now. So maybe in 7 years they bottom out. You don't know. I think that like building like that is smart, but without knowing that result, it's kind of, it's almost like crowning them before they've done anything.
Right. I go back to, I've been saying this for 2 years. It's the old model used to be you needed 2 or 3 superstars to win a championship. Now, I don't know that model necessarily works anymore. You've got to have really good players that get along and play well together and then actually play some defense too. And I don't know that just recycling these with these stars going here or there, I don't know that necessarily works anymore. So I would rather see it being done the way the Spurs are doing it, the way OKC's doing it, than, just let's grab this superstar. And I know, they've got Chris Paul coming in here, but again, to your point about Harrison Barnes, these are pieces or bridge pieces that are going to help you with your foundational stuff in terms of how to be pros, how to act like pros, how to play like pros, how to play like pros when it matters most.
Helps you maintain flexibility as well.
Yes.
Last thing I want to get to before we get out of here, there was a story by Dusty Garza actually on our the Spurs Report on our News 4 and Fox Facebook page or digital pages. Paul McKeskey, 7 feet tall. He played in the NBA for 5 seasons.
Nickname?
Was
Speed Bump.
He was a coach there for a little while as well. Basically, he recently said to an international news outlet that being so tall took a toll on his body and other players' body, and he's kind of worried for Wemby and the toll that it's going to take on Victor's. He said we've seen players like Yao Ming, Daryl Dawkins, Moses Malone, Manute Bol struggle with health issues. And now with Victor being even taller than most of them, except for Manute Bol, he's a little worried that those same health issues will pop up with a player of his size. However, with modern medicine, with the way that Wemby trains, I think he's taken out a lot of those concerns. Because I had the same ones when he was coming out. You see an anomaly like that, and you worry instantaneously, like for his feet, for his knees, for his calves, for all of the extremities that might have tissue issues or the plantar fasciitis, which I feel like we've seen with every 7-footer since the dawn of time. But with the way that he does his calisthenics, his yoga, his stretching, all of those things to take care of his body, he's like Gumby, not Wemby. You know what I mean?
I like that. Yeah, so I think you're right. The difference between Paul McKeskey's time in the league and now is this generation has the benefit of having seen how the prior generation handled these kinds of things, right? So I think the Spurs, they're putting Victor on a pitch count, and they're doing it because he's still not fully grown. Mm-hmm. He's going to get wider, just you would think, by
he already
age.
has his offseason.
And just by age, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to fill out. And with filling out, you would assume there's going to be more of a potential to add mass, strength, all of those things. And with these training regimens, like to your point, they're going to be very smart. It's not to say that he's not going to get hurt or suffer something along the way, but they're being very judicious, knowing that this guy's got his whole career ahead of him. They're not necessarily ready to, punch down the door just yet. There's no reason when you have this much invested in a quote-unquote franchise player to not go or proceed forward with anything other than really being cautious about how you go about it and be smart more than anything else.
And Don has documented on multiple occasions what Wemby and his team have done since he was 8 years old. He's done the hand exercises, the feet exercises, the ankle stretches. He's made sure that his extremities and all of those key I'm going to say pressure points for lack of a better term, those pressure areas that we usually see 7-footers struggle with. Those are all things that he's worked on because he's tried to get ahead of the potential for injury there.
And I think too the game has changed. It's not a brawler league, and I don't want to necessarily say that because it demeans the quality of play back then, but there was a level of physicality back then that does not exist anymore.
I don't think you're demeaning it either, though. It's more of a skill league now. It's just not a.
Well, I don't even know if I would say it's that necessarily. It's more of an athlete league. I think you have better athletes top to bottom than you had back then, but the skill was pretty damn good not that long ago too. But the physicality mixed on top of that was, you knew if a guy scored one layup, he wasn't going to get another one, that he was going to get his ass knocked into the third row. Right. I'm not saying that that's the way we should proceed with everything going forward. I'm just saying it's different. So Victor has the benefit of not having other guys that are big bust on him every single game. The game has changed. It's, we've talked about it a million times before, how there's not the traditional 1 through 5 on most teams anymore. It's 5 really good athletes that are going to out-athlete the other team.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the topic on there, and I want us to start getting into some more Spurs talk because we got media day next week or 2 weeks from now, and we're going to get rolling on the NBA season as it approaches. So I wanted to get more on some Spurs talk. I thought that was an interesting article from Dusty as well. So
yeah, it's nice for again, I that's what I love about this time of year. And the older I get, I think the more fascinating stories always emanate during the off season than they do during the regular season because we see the games. Everybody draws their own conclusions from the games, and we all paint these stories in our head. But it's the stuff behind the scenes that I'm getting more and more interested in the older I get.
All right, that's all we got for you today on the Sneakers and Cleats Podcast. Remember to download, rate, reviews, tell a friend, tell an enemy, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. We will be back with hopefully some good news on the Cowboys and Texans on Monday, and hopefully UTSA as well as they go up against Houston Christian. And please, God, win by 35 or 36 points.
It just, I have a hard time seeing them lose that game.
That would then I'd be waving the white flag if that actually happens. But that's all we got for you today. We'll see you right back here on Monday.